Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Art. Nice to see you today. This is going to be an abbreviated session today, and the reason is that it's my mother-in-law's 95th birthday, and we have to take her out for a Christmas music concert. And so I'm only going to have about 20 minutes here to do this. Guten Morgen, Arkafanes. Um, And so anyway, um, we will, I wanted to introduce to you today. Next week, I will be working with volume five, or I'm sorry, volume four of Jung's Red Book for Our Time, Searching for Soul Under Postmodern Conditions. And Uh, but what I wanted to do is introduce this book because it is very timely. We have a president that seems to want to get us into a war, and uh, he knowing nothing about it, of course, or very little. And I want you to be aware that this book exists. And so I'm just going to read the first few pages of it just to give you a sense of what it's about. Okay, so today I'm going to be reading from A Terrible Love of War by James Hillman. Now, James Hillman was, for 25 years, James Hillman was the dean of uh, the Jung Institute in Zurich. And as such, he is a very, or was a very capable Jungian. He took um, Jungian psychology a step further than Jung, and he wrote many books. And I don't know if I can say I have enjoyed his books, but I can certainly say that um, they're mind bending. And for example, I recently read The Soul's Code, which is about how each of us in our own life has been born to do a specific thing. And we don't know what that is in advance. It's based on our own lives. Um, so Art, for example, who is a disabled individual in a different way than I am, um, has made a life for himself uh, by working with men, and that's obviously a very important contribution to society. I have done many things in my life, and one of them is to create this YouTube channel. And I don't know why I do it. I just know that I am called to do it. So here I am. And that is the way it is for most people. We don't know what we're necessarily called to do, but James Hillman in The Soul's Code uh, talks about how to figure it out and how to figure out what your specific life was called to do. He calls it the acorn theory, on the idea that everything that's in an oak tree, a fully developed oak tree, is in the acorn from the beginning. And so we don't know what that acorn will grow up to look like as an oak tree, but we know that it is an oak tree. And every oak tree is different. And in the same sense, human beings, every one of us, all 8.5 billion of us, are different. And so each of us must find our own calling. I've been called many times in many different ways, as most of you know. And so, um, even though in my youth, when I was in college, I didn't particularly want to serve in any armed force other than the Navy. I wanted to serve in the Navy, but in the time of the Vietnam War, my vision was such that they would not allow me to become a naval officer. And so as a result, I became a Marine officer, and I'm not, uh, there's nothing against the Marine Corps. The Marine Corps has always been good to me, no doubt. But uh, if I'd had my druthers, I would have preferred to be a naval officer like my father. And and anyway, I am a very able seaman, and I've done a lot of sailing in fairly big water on the Chesapeake Bay and so on, but uh, that wasn't what I was ultimately called to do. And so I joined the Marines at a time when all of my friends were running away from service. And so there were only a very small number. I think it was about 18 men in my graduating class from Hamilton College who actually served in the armed forces during the Vietnam War. And one of those men in my class was killed. Uh, a friend of mine from the class of 1965, who was the son of the Episcopal Bishop of Syracuse, was also killed. He was in a different class, so I don't know what their numbers were. But in any case, uh, sometimes we're called to do things that we don't expect. And uh, my friend from the class of 65 joined the Peace Corps, thinking that that would keep him out of Vietnam. And so he went to India for 2 years in the Peace Corps. And when he came back, he called me up, and I went over to his house and saw all these amazing, mysterious things from India. And then the next thing I knew, he was drafted and went to Army OCS, uh, and went to Vietnam as an infantry officer and was killed. And so we can't say what people are called to do. But in any case, that's The Soul's Code, and I urge you to take a look at that book. But today I'm going to read you the first couple of pages of A Terrible Love of War. And as I mentioned to those who came earlier, because it's my mother-in-law's 95th birthday today, we're taking her out to a brunch where there's going to be lovely Christmas music. And so I'm going to have to leave in uh, fairly quickly within the next 10 minutes, but I will read to you the first part, first couple of pages of A Terrible Love for War. Um, and and then we can talk about it and anything else next week. So without further ado, A Terrible Love of War by James Hillman. Okay, as I said, he was the dean of the Jung Institute in Zurich for about 25 years before he came back to the U.S. and then was instrumental in the men's movement and many other things. And he wrote many books. Chapter 1: War is Normal. One sentence in one scene from one film, Patton, sums up what this book tries to understand. The general walks the field after a battle. Churned earth, burned tanks, dead men. He takes up a dying officer, kisses him, surveys the havoc, and says, "I love it. God help me, I do love it so." I love it more than my life. Unquote. We can never prevent war or speak sensibly of peace and disarmament unless we enter this love of war. Unless we move our imaginations into the martial state of soul, we cannot comprehend its pull. This means, quote, going to war, unquote, and this book aims to induct our minds into military service. We are not going to war in the name of peace, as deceitful rhetoric so often declares, but rather for war's own sake, to understand the madness of its love. Yeah, Kathy, I'm sorry. Nothing but a uplifting Sunday morning hit and run. Yep, that's it. That's what I'm having to do today. But my mother-in-law will be 95 only once, so I have to cater to both demands. And my wife wanted me to not appear at all today, um, but here I am to give you a start on this, and maybe after I uh, depart, you can go order yourself a copy of this book. Our civilian disdain and pacifist horror, all the legitimate and deep felt aversion to everything to do with the military and the warrior must be set aside. This because the first principle of psychological method holds that any phenomenon to be understood must be sympathetically imagined. No syndrome can be truly dislodged from its cursed condition unless we first move imagination into its heart. War is, first of all, a psychological task, perhaps first of all psychological tasks, because it threatens your life and mine directly, and the existence of all living beings. The bell tolls for thee and all. Nothing can escape thermonuclear rage. And if the burning and its aftermath are unimaginable, this cause, war, is not. War is also a psychological task because philosophy and theology, the field supposed to do the heavy thinking for our species. Well, let me read that again. Philosophy and theology, the fields supposed to do the heavy thinking for our species, are neglected, have neglected war's overriding importance. Quote, war is the father of all, unquote, said Heraclitus at the beginning of Western thought, which Emmanuel Levinas restates in recent Western thought as, quote, being reveals itself as war, unquote. If it is a primordial component of being, then war fathers the very structure of existence and our thinking about it. Our ideas of the universe, of religion, of ethics, war determines the thought patterns of Aristotle's logic of opposites, Kant's antinomies, Darwin's natural selection, Marx's struggle of classes, and even Freud's repression of the id by the ego and superego. We think in warlike terms, feel ourselves at war with ourselves, and unknowingly believe predations, territorial defense, conquest, and the interminable battle of opposing forces are the ground rules of existence. Yet for all this, has ever a major Western philosopher, with the great exception of Thomas Hobbes, whose Leviathan was published 3.5 centuries ago, delivered a full-scale assault on the topic or given it the primary importance war deserves in the hierarchy of themes? Immanuel Kant came to it late, 1795, with a brief essay written when he was past 70 and after he had published his main works. He states the theme of this chapter in a few words, much like Hobbes. Quote, "The state of peace among men living side by side is not the natural state. The natural state is one of war. Though war is the primary human condition, this focus is upon perpetual peace, which is the title of this essay." Unquote. About peace, philosophers and theologians have much to say, and we shall take up peace in our stride. Okay. Fallen from the higher mind's central contemplation, war tends to be examined piecemeal by specialists or set aside as history, where, uh, where it then becomes a subchapter called military history in the hands of scholars and reporters dedicated to the record of facts, or its study is placed outside the mainstream, isolated in policy institutions, often at war themselves with rival institutions. This magic of their thinking transmutes killing into taking out, bloodshed into body counts, and the chaos of battle into scenarios, game theory, cost benefits, as weapons become toys and bombs smart. Especially needed is not more specialist inquiry into past wars and future wars, but rather an archetypal psychology, the myths, philosophy, and theology of war's deepest mind. That is the purpose of this book. Okay, so I have read to you the first 3 pages of A Terrible Love of War by James Hillman. There it is. And I recommend that anybody that hears this by James Hillman, there is his name. Anybody that hears this, please go to Amazon and order this book. I think you'll find it useful. Now, I'll quickly look at your responses here, and then I'm going to have to move on. Kathy says can't change your birthday, but could have chosen your read. Yeah, sorry about that. It was just a quick hitter that I thought I could get going in a short period of time. So I do apologize. But next week we'll begin with volume 4 of Jung's Red Book for Our Time, Searching for Soul Under Postmodern Conditions. So Arcaphanes says the mediator between the head and the hands must be the heart. Yes, indeed. Um, Arcaphanes says, quote, "I shall sow discord between them and her. I shall destroy their belief in this woman." Um, okay. The woman is Babylon. Uh, and Shuri says modern civilization, the ancient Near East, the first civilization. Uh, yeah. Penelope, I don't think that A Terrible Love of War is available on Audible. I did look for it, and I'll go look for it again because I like to read these books on Audible if possible. And yeah, I know, Sheree, that most of you don't have this book, but it's fairly cheap. It's like $16 if you buy it from Amazon. So I hope you can get it. But now I must take my leave. I do apologize for a foreshortened lesson today. We will continue next week with um, this book, Jung's Red Book for Our Time, Searching for Soul Under Postmodern Conditions by Murray Stein and Thomas Arst, editors. And this is volume 4 that we'll be working with next week. I'm sorry to say I've misplaced my volume 3, and I may have to order another copy or something for the future. But this book will probably keep us going for the next 6 months, I suppose. So anyway, thank you all for being here. I apologize for having to leave early, but I do have a family obligation that I must fulfill, and I regret it. Or I don't regret that my mother-in-law is 95, but I do regret having to cut this session short. I don't usually do that, as you know. Okay, so peace. Have a